welcome back to Bengal Bites, a podcast about the Cincinnati Bengals from a real, honest perspective. I'm your host, Derek. This is episode 124. This is the Week 17 recap episode where we're going to discuss the Cincinnati Bengals taking care of business at home 37-14 against the lowly Arizona Cardinals. This win gets the Bengals to 3-2 since Joe Burrow came back off of injured reserve, and this was the expectation. For most of the games this season, this is what the offense was supposed to look like from this Cincinnati Bengals team, just dominant, unstoppable, putting up all kinds of points, and the defense played a little bit better than they had been previously in the season. We still saw some glaring errors and not so great tackling by this Bengals defense, but for the most part, they did a good job of shutting down this Arizona Cardinals offense, which was lacking in weapons, no doubt. Arizona has been ravaged by injuries, and you would say the motivation probably has been drained out of this Arizona Cardinals team a long time ago, but for a Bengals team that has been having a rough go of it this season, you'll take it. You'll take wins like this, and it's much better than the alternative. If they had lost this game or even come close to losing this game, because the Cardinals were coming in on a 7-game losing streak. This is their 8th loss in a row, so it's not like it's a surprise to anybody that the Cardinals lost. But in my prediction before the game in the preview episode, I said I thought it was going to be 36-29. I was close on the Bengals score. I was only 1 point off. They got 37. I thought they were going to get 36, but the Cardinals really just didn't show up to play in this game. And it's great that the Bengals got the win. Now there's going to be even more talk going into this final game of the season against the Browns about how the Bengals are building all kinds of hope and momentum for next season and all that kind of stuff. But realistically, the only thing this game means is that they were the better team this Sunday. And that was obvious going into it. Just by, if you looked at who was playing in this game, the Bengals had pretty much their day one starting offense out there. They had Gesicki, T. Higgins, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Chase Brown, Samaje Perine, their entire offensive line, including Dalton Risner, who probably should have been there from day one, but for whatever reason, they waited until right before the season started to even sign Dalton Risner to the practice squad. Or they signed him to the active roster, but it just took way too long to get Dalton Risner into the facility, on the team, get him up to speed. Now he's like their best offensive lineman. But Bengals offensively had the peak of their powers available to them. And the Cardinals, half the guys on the Cardinals, not that I follow the Cardinals that well, but I've never even heard of some of these guys playing on the Cardinals, especially on offense. Really on both sides of the ball. The Cardinals had 21 guys on injured reserve. So much of their salary cap has gone on to injured reserve. So at this point in the season, they're playing with guys who may not have even been on the roster up until a month or so ago. And that doesn't take credit away from this Bengals team. They, it's still the NFL. It's still the best of the best, all that kind of stuff. But you could just see, the guy, I think Will Johnson, number 0 for the Cardinals, trying to guard Jamar Chase one-on-one. He couldn't even, get a hand on him. He couldn't do anything to stop Jamar Chase. So Jamar Chase had a good game. Cardinals couldn't even guard Cody Ford. Offensive linemen split out wide, catching passes for 21 yards. Catching longer passes than Andrei Iosivas catches most of the time. And when you think about this, after that gadget play to Cody Ford now has more catches and receiving yards than Charlie Jones and Jermaine Burton combined this season. That was something to cheer about, I guess. It was good to see the Bengals fans be able to have a better experience at this game than in the previous home game where it was record cold temperatures and they had snow and ice all over the seats. This was actually the warmest game in December at a game in Cincinnati. It was in the mid 60s. Sometimes it was sunny, but mostly overcast, no rain. So perfect weather for Joe Burrow to go out and have a great day. And that's exactly what he did. He was 24 of 31, 305 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He was sacked a couple of times, 2 plays in a row, actually. Actually, he got sacked 3 times, I think, unless one of those came on Joe Burrow, or on Joe Flacco, excuse me. But no, 3 sacks that Joe Burrow took in this game, but he didn't get injured. That was the biggest thing. I was always wincing and kind of looking through my fingers whenever Joe Burrow got hit and say, oh, is he okay? Is he getting up? Is he making a face? Is his face okay? And I was scared for a moment. Samaje Perine looked like he might have had his knee buckle under him. It looked very similar to the way Dax Hill tore his ACL on this plastic grass artificial turf. Samaje Perine came out for a second. I was worried about him, but then he came back in the game later. That's multiple times Samaje Perine has come out of games looking like he was seriously injured, and then the next thing you know, he's back in the game. Same thing with Amarius Mims. He got hit in the shin or something like that at one point in the game. Had to come out. They put Cody Ford in at right tackle. Cody Ford's like the Swiss Army knife for the Bengals offensive line. And speaking of offensive line, maybe the Bengals offensive linemen were a little bit more motivated to go out and perform well for Joe Burrow because he gave them for Christmas their gifts, which last year we heard about. The gift was authentic samurai swords. And this year, Joe Burrow changed it up. He didn't get any weaponry for the offensive linemen, even though they asked for guns last year. He got them fossils, unique fossils. They got to pick out different types of animals and different time periods. Joe Burrow said he wanted to get them something that he would have wanted, which, I mean, you don't know how many people are into fossils. Everybody's hopefully a little bit into it, but I'm sure some of them are more excited than others to be getting the fossils. Some of them probably wanted the, tropical vacation or a new all-terrain vehicle or whatever, but fossils will have to do for this year. I mean, either way, like those fossils are getting destroyed because those offensive linemen aren't going to do. I'll give Ted Karras. Maybe Ted Karras will do a good job, put it in a display case somewhere and not lose it. But probably all the rest of these offensive linemen are going to, spill it, break it. Who knows what they're going to do with these fossils. They're going to be destroyed before you know it. But if the Bengals could fossilize any game from this season, this would be probably the one to put on there. This was maybe an even better game than last week against the Miami Dolphins because the Dolphins looked like they had a chance up until halftime. The Cardinals didn't even look like they had a chance going into halftime. This game was over after the first quarter, which was unfortunate from a football-loving perspective. This game was not very interesting unless you are a Bengals fan, you want the Bengals to win. That's great. But just from a football watching perspective, this game was boring. And especially in the second half when it was like 37-7 at one point. They had Joe Flacco coming in there just handing the ball off to Taj Brooks. It felt like a preseason game for most of the second half, which is unfortunate because, like I said, I wanted the Bengals to win the game, but I wanted it to at least be somewhat entertaining, a little bit back and forth. If the Cardinals took the lead at some point in the game, that would have been interesting, kind of like the Dolphins in the first half of last week. At least they had the lead, at least they had a chance for a little bit, but no. Cardinals never had a chance in this game. And this is the kind of game that will get coaches fired. Like Jonathan Gannon, they were talking about on the broadcast about how, these guys, they haven't given up on the head coach, Jonathan Gannon. That was what they said in the first half. Then they came out after halftime, got down 37-7, and Daryl Johnston, the announcer for Fox, was like, yeah, I don't really like the way these Arizona Cardinals have played in the second half. And if they want this coach to be around. They're going to have to play a lot better for the rest of this game. Basically implying that this is the kind of performance that get head coaches fired in the NFL. And this was just a complete no-show by the Arizona Cardinals. And I get it. They got another guy go down with an injury early in this game on their defense, and their season's over. They've lost 7 in a row coming into this one. They've got nothing left to play for, and they just saw somebody get injured. At this point, it's probably a bit of self-preservation mode. Don't put yourself out there too much. Don't get too injured in any of these plays. Don't put your neck out on the line. So I get that. But, from a spectator perspective, would have been at least a little bit interesting if the Cardinals would have just kind of given it a little bit more effort. But on the positive note, Jamar Chase broke his no touchdown streak and had 2 touchdowns in this game. That takes his season total to 7. Jamar had 60 yards on 7 catches, 2 touchdowns, a long of 22. And the touchdown came on a nice play where he just caught it out in the left flat with 2 or 3 guys in his area, but the first guy couldn't tackle him. Jamar just kind of ran through the arm tackle. And then the second guy, he put a nice spin move back to the inside, kept his balance, and then ran into the end zone before the third guy could tackle him. Just an amazing display of strength and athleticism by Jamar Chase to get in the end zone on that first touchdown he had. Second touchdown was more just a kind of a ho-hum. I think they were inside the 10-yard line. Just a very simple slant route to Jamar over the middle where it was like, what is the defense doing? They left Jamar Chase too much cushion and left him a free path to the inside on the slant. That's way too easy of a pass and catch for Joe Burrow down in the red zone. So there was a couple instances where the Bengals were driving it down inside the red zone, getting ready to score, and the Cardinals, that's where you would expect the defense to kind of stiffen up and get a little bit more resistance, but it was the opposite. It was like as soon as the Bengals got into the red zone, it was a free path to scoring touchdowns. And in the red zone, the Bengals were 5 for 5. Every time they got inside the red zone, they scored a touchdown. And there was one play where it was 4th and short inside the 5-yard line. The Bengals came up to go for it, quarterback sneak with Joe Burrow, and then the Cardinals didn't even get lined up. They were still like kind of standing around looking at each other, hands on their hips. They weren't ready to go, and then all of a sudden the ball snapped. Joe Burrow picks up the first down. So Daryl Johnston was calling out things like that. The effort, the lack of coordination, it was just kind of like, what are the Cardinals doing out here? But this was another game where the Bengals decided to take the ball first, even though they won the opening coin toss. So that's just a little bit different strategy. Most teams opt to defer until the second half and take it then, get that double dip. Zach Taylor's always trying to get around the middle part of the game, but they've been taking the ball, trying to get their offense on the field first, score a touchdown first, and somehow in their mind get the momentum, whatever. So the Bengals did another one of their long 12-play, 72-yard drives on the opening drive of the game to get ahead 7-0. This came on the pass to Jamar Chase to the left for 13 yards on the touchdown. Jamar also had a 22-yard catch over the middle, contested by Will Johnson, but it was a good job of Jamar Chase having very strong hands. And even though the defender had one hand on the ball, Jamar Chase was still able to grab it and hold on to it. It was good coverage early, especially by the Cardinals. I keep wanting to call them the Falcons, 2 bird teams, and they're both red. But the Cardinals had decent coverage on, the first couple of series. We saw Akeem Davis-Gaither, former Bengals linebacker, on the first play of the game, break up a pass from Joe Burrow. So I was like, maybe Akeem Davis-Gaither is going to, have Joe Burrow's tendencies memorized. But no, I think that was one of the only plays he made all day. But very methodical 12-play, 72-yard drive all the way down the field that took up 5.5 minutes. Put Bengals up on top 7-0. Cardinals fail to respond with anything. They go 3 and out on their first drive, punt the ball away back to the Bengals, and that was their only drive of the first quarter. Cardinals, they only threw one pass in the first quarter. It was 2 unsuccessful runs. Cardinals didn't have much of a running game to speak of all game, but they got into 3rd and long and then couldn't complete the 3rd down. They were like 0 for 4 on 3rd downs in the first half. The Cardinals just couldn't get anything going offensively. But the Bengals took their second drive, another 12-play, 79-yard drive this time, even longer, almost 8 minutes on this drive. Just a lot of dink and dunk, like Joe Burrow always says. He's going to just take what the defense gives him. So when they have Jamar Chase and T. Higgins in there, if they're getting double teamed, then somebody else is going to be open, like guys like Tanner Hudson, Mike Gesicki, Chase Brown out of the backfield, Samaje Perine. They also had a nice 13-yard run by Chase Brown. Chase Brown has been showing his elusiveness, breaking tackles, making guys miss in the open field. They got a defensive pass interference penalty. Jamar Chase, Will Johnson was in coverage, got there a little bit early, and it was beat by Jamar Chase, so he gave a free first down to the Bengals. And then later they ended up converting it on a Samaje Perine run up the middle. They had Cody Ford and Lucas Patrick, 7 offensive linemen in the game. Samaje Perine as the running back, just lots of power, and basically just walked into the end zone. The Cardinals didn't do much to stop the Bengals, and the only issue after this was Evan McPherson missed the extra point. It was wide to the left, and that was the first missed extra point by Evan McPherson this entire season. That made it 13-0 Cincinnati, but that missed extra point made it a little bit uncertain, a little bit uneasy. But still, Bengals had 2 back-to-back 12-play drives that ended in touchdowns. Cardinals finally decided to respond with this was only their second drive of the game, granted, but they had a 5-play, 70-yard drive that ended in a touchdown. The biggest plays on this drive were, they started off with a 15-yard pass to Trey McBride over the middle, got a first down, picked up another first down, got a penalty on B.J. Hill for jumping offside, then 2nd and 3 from the Bengals' 38-yard line, pass to Michael Wilson out to the short left. First of all, there's bad coverage by the Bengals. This was another similar play to the 3rd and long that the Pittsburgh Steelers converted by Aaron Rodgers. I think it was in that Thursday night game, where the concept was having 2 guys on the left. One guy goes deep. The second guy breaks his route off short and does like a 15-yard out. Both times, Bengals on defense failed to pick up that guy running the out route and just continued on down the field with the guy running the deep pattern. In this case, Michael Wilson standing there with like 15 yards between him and the next Bengals defender. He's got DJ Turner, Geno Stone, Jordan Battle, and Barrett Carter all kind of surrounding him. Somehow, none of those guys is able to come up and make the tackle. Geno Stone comes in and makes a very typical Geno Stone play. It's not like we haven't seen this all season, but for an NFL safety, this would be embarrassingly, shockingly bad. Geno Stone just comes in there with putting the elbow, the chicken wing out, he just kind of bump the guy out of bounds, but he does it with the wrong shoulder. Instead of putting his head across Michael Wilson's body, Geno Stone comes in there trying to give him like a glancing blow with his head out of the way. Geno Stone doesn't want to get a concussion, that's for sure. Geno Stone will never get a concussion because he never puts his head into harm's way. And there's something to be said about, you don't want to get a concussion, self-preservation, all that kind of stuff. But when you're supposed to be making tackles, you have to actually do it like with a physical blow impact on the guy, not just kind of give him the chicken wing out of bounds. That's exactly what happens. He continues up the field, just like Darnell Washington did, that massive tight end for the Pittsburgh Steelers, when Geno Stone tried to give him the chicken wing. Didn't work then, didn't work against the Cardinals. Somehow, nobody else for the Bengals is able to come up. DJ Turner is busy getting blocked out of bounds. Jordan Battle kind of stopped running because he assumed that Geno Stone was going to make the tackle. Bad decision. Don't do that. So then Michael Wilson just basically walks into the end zone untouched. Horrible defense that brought the game back to 13-7 Bengals. Right after this, the Bengals get stopped 3-and-out. They actually lost yardage because of a sack on Joe Burrow that moved them back. This time, Calais Campbell came in on 3rd-and-7 to defuse this Bengals drive. They had to punt it back to the Cardinals, but the Cardinals offense isn't able to do anything with it themselves. They go 3-and-out after just a minute of having it. So 2 3-and-outs in the first 3 drives for the Cardinals. They give it back to the Bengals, who summarily convert it into another field goal. This time a 10-play, 60-yard drive. Takes another 6 minutes off the clock. Typical Joe Burrow, methodically moving the offense down the field, picking up first down after first down, converting on those third downs to his tight ends and backs out of the backfield. And that made it 16-7 Bengals. If I go back and check the distance, this was a 57-yard field goal by Evan McPherson. So this came after 2 sacks in a row. The Bengals had it down to the Cardinals 41. Then 1st-and-10, Joe Burrow got sacked. Samaje Perine got injured. The next play after that, Dalvin Tomlinson sacks Joe Burrow. Dalvin Tomlinson's like 350 pounds. He landed right on top of Joe Burrow. And this is where I was looking at Joe Burrow like, oh no, is he okay? Is he getting up? Is he like have a punctured lung or something? What's going on? But everything looked fine. He actually was able to stay in the game and complete a 15-yard pass to Chase Brown to get it back to the Arizona 38. That's where they kicked the field goal to make it 16-7 Bengals. Bengals defense forces another 3-and-out punt. That's 3 out of 4 drives that they had 3-and-out punt by the Cardinals. So the Cardinals just could not get anything going offensively. They just had a 2-yard run, incomplete pass, punt. Couldn't get anything going. Gave it back to the Bengals, and this was a great punt return by Keyshawn Williams. Basically, it was a 50-yard punt to the Bengals 21, but then Keyshawn Williams returned it 43 yards to the Cardinals 36-yard line. Set the Bengals up in great field position, and they took advantage of that with a 3-play, 36-yard touchdown drive that was mostly 25 yards from Chase Brown off left tackle. Amarius Mims got injured on that point. He came back later, but this was where they finished the drive off with that short pass, 8-yard touchdown pass to Jamar Chase on the slant route, where the Cardinals just decided really not to cover Jamar Chase on the slant, which is not advisable for anybody to do. So at that point, Bengals are up 23-7. Cardinals get the ball back with about a minute left to go before halftime, but they are not able to do anything. They get 1 yard on 5 plays. They got a first down, and then they got a 10-yard holding penalty, a 5-yard penalty on a false start. So after that, the Cardinals were looking at 1st-and-25 from their own 25-yard line. They don't pick it up, obviously, ended up punting it away. Bengals just take a knee to go into halftime up 23-7. Cardinals come out on their first drive of the second half, and again, another 3-and-out punt, lose 3 yards, give it back to the Bengals, who convert another 11-play, 84-yard drive, 6.5 minutes off the clock for another touchdown to go up 30-7. This time, the touchdown came on a 6-yard touchdown run by Chase Brown off of left guard. And this was another methodical drive. The biggest play on this one was a deep pass to the left to T. Higgins for 39 yards, where they had been trying this deep pass up the sidelines to T. Higgins. The first quarter, they tried it, and it was a good play by the Cardinals defense to break up the pass a little bit behind T. Higgins. Joe Burrow couldn't get it out in front enough for T. Higgins to run under it. This time, Joe Burrow got it out in front of T. Higgins enough to get it in front of the safe or in front of the corner. The safety didn't have enough time to come over and break up the pass, but it looked close to getting a hit in T. Higgins' head, which I don't like to see, but T. Higgins brushed it off, didn't, no worse for wear. So that's another guy where every time he gets hit, I'm just kind of wincing, just making sure that T. Higgins doesn't get any kind of head injury again like he's been dealing with this season. But at that point, Bengals are up 30-7. Guess what the Cardinals do? You'll be surprised. 3-and-out punt again. This is like 1, 2. I have to go back and count, but I think that's 5 out of the first 6 drives that the Cardinals had a 3-and-out punt or 5-and-out punt or something. They weren't able to move the ball and punt it away. They had 1 touchdown. Other than that, complete futility. And I wanted to go back and at one point I looked at the team statistics. The Bengals had like 26 first downs and the Cardinals had only 4. And after this next drive by the Bengals, they converted it into their 5th touchdown of the day. This came on another 10-play, 82-yard drive. So they had an 11-play, 84-yard drive. This time, 10-play, 82-yard drive. Take up another 5 minutes. This was a 30, capped off by a 1-yard run by Chase Brown up the middle, but there was a 32-yard pass to Mike Gesicki, a 21-yard pass to Cody Ford over the right sideline where nobody could tackle Cody Ford. It was kind of confusing, and really, I don't know what the guy defensively was trying to do guarding Cody Ford, because you should know that Cody Ford isn't going to run by you deep. So I don't know why this guy was playing such soft coverage away from Cody Ford, like he was respecting his speed or something. Then the thing that was even weirder was at the snap, this guy starts backpedaling away from Cody Ford, even though Cody Ford is just standing there and not going anywhere. So either this guy didn't think that Cody Ford was actually going to be a viable receiver, or he was trying to double team somebody else. But he could have just stood right next to Cody Ford and broken up the pass. Like, there's no reason to play so far away from Cody Ford and just let him catch it, because then he's got a full head of steam running at you with the football. So bad job by the Cardinals on defense. They totally fell asleep at the wheel. It looked like the Cardinals were basically asleep for most of this game. They were sleepwalking through the majority of this game, but it was a good moment, I guess, for the Bengals fans to see this big offensive lineman out there running down the field. But, there was a fun moment, something they'll, be able to talk about. It was Cody Ford's birthday, so, that's great. But really, that should never work, really. They should not have that play even in the playbook. It shouldn't have even worked. I don't know what the Cardinals were doing. But got the Bengals up 37-7 right at the end of the third quarter. So again, another game where it's 37-7 and they still have the entire fourth quarter left to play. Fans started to leave at that point, and I don't blame them, because the Cardinals, they went 13 plays, 57 yards, turned it over on fourth down, didn't get any points. The thing the Cardinals were trying to do at this point was just throw the ball to Trey McBride to get him more receptions, because he was trying to break the record for most receptions in a season by a tight end. So he broke that Zach Ertz record in this game. But it was really kind of a meaningless record, because you're getting beat 37-7 and you're worried about receptions. Like, it doesn't really matter. Actually, on that fourth down that they didn't convert, you could see Trey McBride, it was like a ball tipped straight up in the air, a jump ball. Trey McBride goes up to get it. He caught it, but he was short of the first down. But he was just checking with the referee to make sure, okay, it was a catch though, right? Even though I was short, I caught it though, right? So you could tell he really wanted to get that record. Bengals put in Joe Flacco at this point. They had a 10-play, 41-yard drive, punted it away. That was only the second punt of the entire game by Ryan Rico, and it was a good job of the Bengals special teams unit, DJ Ivey going down there and batting the ball away inside the 5-yard line to prevent another Ryan Rico touchback. At that point, the Bengals defense were kind of just in the soft zone, prevent kind of defense, Cardinals had a 16-play, 92-yard drive that ended in a Trey McBride touchdown to make the score slightly more respectable at 37-14 Bengals, and that ended up being the final score in this game. From a team statistics perspective, the Bengals, this is another one where they just were like holding on to the ball, kind of like, what was that, the Ravens game? Where the Bengals had the ball for over 40 minutes in this game, almost 41 minutes to the Cardinals' 19 minutes. But unlike that Ravens game where the Bengals had 0 points, this time the Bengals had the ball for over 40 minutes, and they scored 37 points, 5 out of 5 in the red zone. I think they were, 0 for 5 in the red zone in that Ravens game. So completely different result. Obviously, they're playing a different team. Ravens have a lot more to play for than the Cardinals. But still, it was just a total domination. Cardinals, they had 12 first downs, but like I said, most of those came in that fourth quarter on that garbage time touchdown drive and the last couple drives where the Bengals weren't really trying. They put in their defensive, bench guys off the bench, guys who weren't playing, practice squad, like Isaiah Foskey and DJ Ivy and guys like that. So Bengals were getting more experience for the younger guys, which I think they should be doing. I know Zach Taylor keeps talking about we got to do everything to win the game, and we got to have our best players out there to give us the best chance to win the game. But, like, some of these guys who haven't been playing literally all season, I mean, why are they even on the team? Like, these games don't actually matter. It doesn't really matter if you win. And now, especially, they are tied with a bunch of other teams at 6 wins. So if they win another game to get to 7, that's only going to reduce their draft position, which I know they're not thinking about. They want to win every game. They're preparing to win, yada, yada, yada. But seriously, though, we don't need to have Joe Burrow going out there risking injury, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, all that kind of stuff. I mean, they can play the first half, I guess, but it really should be a limited snap count. I mean, they got to keep the fans interested. So they're going to say, oh, all our starters are going to play. Joe Burrow is going to be out there because Joe Burrow is the cash cow. If they said Joe Burrow's not going to play, then fans wouldn't show up. So they got to say Joe Burrow's going to play, and Joe Burrow probably feels some responsibility to go out and put on a show for the fans. But Myles Garrett for the Browns is going to be coming in, and he's 1 sack away from getting the all-time NFL record for sacks. So he's going to do everything he can to get hits and pressure on the quarterback. So let's get Joe Burrow out of there. We don't necessarily want him taking a bunch of hits from Myles Garrett if we don't need to. But one of the other bright moments, if you want to say that, was the Bengals had more sacks in a game than I think they have all season. They had 4 sacks on Jacoby Brissett, and some of these were coverage sacks. It was because Jacoby Brissett, he had time to throw, but he just wasn't. Like, I'll have to go back and look and see. It seemed like coverage sacks. Like, the Bengals defensive backs were doing a good job of covering the Cardinals wide receivers, not letting them get open. So maybe Jacoby Brissett didn't have great options to throw the ball, but then he wouldn't throw, and then he can't run because he's too slow to get away from these guys. So nothing good happened when Jacoby Brissett, when the play broke down, he would just throw it away or take a sack. Not really a good game plan from the Cardinals offensively. But Myles Murphy had a sack, TJ Slayton, Cedric Johnson both had sacks, and rookie Shamar Stewart got his first career sack, which he's been waiting a long time. Finally got that in week 17. Dax Hill also had 3 passes defensed, including one good one-on-one matchup against Marvin Harrison Jr., who did not look good in this game at all. He only played about 20 snaps and then sat out the rest of the game. He didn't have a catch. He didn't look like he was especially interested in playing in the game. So I don't know what's going on with him, but for a guy who was number 4 overall pick in the draft, he has not really done much of anything so far in his career. And like I said in the preview, he's got a lot of injuries. He's got some kind of a heel injury. He had his appendix out. He had a concussion. So he's got a lot of things going on. But so far in the career, not living up to all the hype coming out of Ohio State because he was like the number 1 guy. So overall, it was a good win. I'm not going to complain about a win, but it's kind of a bittersweet kind of feeling because you know that, yeah, this is great, but in the end, it doesn't really matter because they're eliminated from the playoffs already. So they can say, oh, this is how we're going to play next year, but the reality is some of these guys aren't going to be on the team next year. There's going to be a different every roster around the NFL is going to be completely different. So there's no carrying over the momentum from one year to the next. It's great to, pad their statistics a little bit, make themselves look a little bit better, and so they can go into the offseason saying, hey, 7-10 will, of course, look better than 6-11, but in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really make any difference for next year. In fact, you could argue it might even lead to worse results. Like it'll be a little bit of fool's gold and have them being too confident, saying, oh, well, if Joe Burrow hadn't have been injured, we would actually have been really good last year, and we did everything the right way last year. This only thing was just a little bit of bad luck, and if not for a couple of injuries to Joe Burrow and Trey Hendrickson, we would have been in the Super Bowl again. So that's the thing that I'm worried about is this false sense of security that winning some of these games at the very end of the season against bad teams is going to bring. And this was actually a game with quite a few familiar faces. Not only did Akeem Davis-Gaither play in this game, he actually had 5 tackles, 1 solo, but Zachary Carter, former Bengals defensive lineman, 3rd-round pick out of University of Florida, he had 5 tackles, including 2 solo and 1 that was maybe a touchdown-saving tackle. Maybe a little bit of extra motivation for guys like that coming back to Cincinnati, a place where they got drafted originally. Akeem Davis-Gaither and Zach Carter both got drafted by the Bengals. So they had decent games. Maybe they had a little bit more to play for than the rest of the Cardinals. But now there's only one game left to play in this season before we wrap things up. So we'll do that on the next episode, the preview episode for the Browns game. But if you've listened all the way to the end, thank you so much. Let me know what you think in the comments. Give me a thumbs up, subscribe, do all that kind of stuff. But until next time, I'm going to leave you with a hooday and stay hungry for more Bengal Bites.